today's episode of Future Says, we have Jada Smith, Senior Vice President of Product Strategy and Delivery at Karma Automotive. Welcome to the show, Jada.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself and your role at Karma.
Well, I'll start with my role at Karma because I'm really excited about it. So I'm essentially responsible for three things. The first is execution. So that's making sure that all of our vehicles, that we meet our cost and our timing targets, and that we're able to take these beautiful cars and get them to the market in the hands of our consumers. The second piece really gets to my technology background, and that's advanced engineering. And so being able to identify the latest and greatest technology, put together our technology roadmaps, and then align that the specific features within those technology to our vehicles that are going to be coming out. So that's always exciting. And then the last piece is product planning, and that's something that's specific to the OEMs about identifying what our customers are looking for, and for each within the market segment for each vehicle, and being able to tailor to their preferences. And that's really aligned with our technology roadmaps, making sure that we're putting the right technology in the right vehicles to match our consumers' needs. So that's the scope of my job, which is kind of large, but it's super fun. And it's really well aligned with my background, so a little bit more about me. So my background is in software engineering, and systems. So systems and software is where I've spent the bulk of my career, but also had some stints in project management, customer management, all of it in the automotive industry. So it's really exciting to see it kind of all culminate to this.
Sure. So you've been in automotive for a while. Karma Automotive, does it represent something new in the sense it's more of a startup than where you've worked before?
Definitely. It has a startup mentality, even though we've been around for a few years. And that's one of the things I really like about it, that when you think of the traditional OEMs, the traditional tier ones, which is where I've spent my career, they're very hierarchical, very disciplined, very rigorous in how they do things, which is good. But sometimes that drives slowness, right? And getting things done. It makes things challenging. They're not perhaps as agile or flexible as they need to be. And with Karma and that startup mentality, we get agility. We get flexibility. We don't have that same hierarchical structure, at least the depth of it, that you see in the much larger, more established automotive companies, and that allows us to pivot. It allows us to try new things. If we need a decision, we can make it more quickly, and that's invigorating. The culture is different, and that's exciting too.
Sure. So Karma's coming into an automotive world with no shortage of competitors, let's say.
Yeah.
A lot of car companies out there, a lot of them very established, some new. What's Karma bringing to the fold, which is radically different?
We have quite a few things, actually, and that's exciting. So the first is that we are the ultra luxury for EVs, and we are we're not trying to be mass market. We're trying to be very specific, going after that ultra luxury market here for the electrified segment in the United States. We are a car maker here in the U.S. So all of our cars are designed and manufactured in Southern California. And we're the only ultra-luxury EV car maker that's designed and manufactured here in Southern California in the United States. And so that's special. The other thing that's really special is the design of Karma. So we're very unique in the look and the feel. And you're not going to see anything else like it. And that's kind of inspirational when you look at it. Even the names of the cars, they inspire movement. They inspire, in fact, the new one that we just launched, its name is Kavea. We announced it. We unveiled it a few months ago here. And the name of it is Kavea. And it's loosely translated in another language as poetry in motion. And it's exciting, to see that. And when you look at it and you look at the style, it evokes that feeling and that emotion. It brings back the pleasure of driving. And that's something we should all want to have. We used to have it. Feeling the open road, right? The power of the vehicle, the surround of luxury, and that's fun, and we want to bring that joy back, and that's something that we have the power to deliver, but you don't necessarily get from others, and that's exciting. The other thing that we have is the fact that we are small is an asset because we are nimble. We're able to try new things, and we can try them more quickly. We can bring the latest and greatest in technology to our customers before someone who's much larger, because we're small. We can make those decisions. We can implement quickly and get our customers' feedback. And that's what we can bring. That's what we are bringing.
Amazing. Well, I am going on a road trip next week, Jada, around the Grand Canyon and areas like this. So if you're looking for a tester, see this Poetry in Motion, do let me know. Can you paint a picture for the audience here as well? You say design is one of the real differentiating factors for Karma. Can you paint a picture in how is that different? What can customers expect from Karma?
So in terms of design, one of the things that's typical with EVs, you typically see an elevated vehicle. And that has to do, it all comes back to the battery pack, because the battery pack is large and it has to be put somewhere. So usually it's on the floor of the vehicle. Ours is unique in that we don't package it that way. So because we innovate our packaging of the battery, it allows us to keep a very low profile. So it has the styling, even in our four-door sedan, of a very sleek sports car. And so when you come up and you look at it, it's low, it's very sleek, it's fast, and it's like you want to get in it. You want to put your foot on the pedal. You want to see how fast it can go, and it can go fast. And that's exciting. It makes you long for the highway and say, let's see what this thing can do. And that's what we all love about driving. And the fact that our designers are innovative, the fact that our technology experts are able to say, okay, let's partner with those designers. Let's see how we can make things a little different so we can still keep the beauty of the car and still evoke those emotions that make us love driving so much. And let's put this beautiful sculpture in someone's garage, but also wrap a ton of great tech on the inside and deliver that to our customers. And that's what we have. And we're going to have even more.
I'm excited.
I'm glad.
I want to drive one. I've already said it. I want to drive one. You've just said it there at the end as well. Design is one thing. It's super important. You need to be excited to get in that car. But once you're in that car, nowadays a lot of the battlefield on the car front is all around the software, all around the connectivity.
Yep.
Can you talk a bit more about that and how important that is for Karma?
Absolutely. So a couple of things about the cars that are not really talked about a lot, but were really visionary. I can't take credit for it because I wasn't the one who put them in there, but I'm really proud of the team and what they did because they were really forward thinking. When they designed the cars, they embedded OTA from the beginning. And we don't talk about it because we're like, well, of course it's in there. Why wouldn't it be in there? Yeah. So we OTA everything. It's standard. We designed it in from the beginning, and we've been doing it from the beginning. So all of our fleet is OTA capable. So our software is structured to enable that. And that's something that is at the leading edge. We know a lot of the other car companies, they're working on that, and that's great. But we had the benefit of being able to do that from the start. The other is data. And our fleet is fully connected. So that means that we're able to talk to every single vehicle in our fleet, get data from that fleet, and then we can use that data to improve in the next generation of our vehicles. And that's powerful. And that's something that is sets us apart from everyone else. And so using that data, being able to apply the correct analytics to it, and then use it to improve in the next generation of technology, we're ahead in that space as well. So it's not just about, okay, do we have the latest and greatest of, driver monitoring system and ADAS and all of that. Those things are important, but it's also the stuff behind the scenes that the consumer doesn't necessarily see that we have to think about. And I'm really, really pleased that the team was so visionary and thinking about that from the beginning, because it enables us to take really not just a step in technology, but a leap forward in our designs and in our technology evolution for the next vehicles.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, a lot of other car companies are at that stage where they're trying to connect their vehicles, they're trying to get data off, and once they get that, then they can start to fathom, what analytics could we do here?
Right.
So you're a step ahead then. You have data from every vehicle in your fleet. What are you doing with that data?
Yeah.
What can you do with that data?
We can do so much. It's like the sky's the limit, right? So I think the limit is what we can think of. It's not so much the technology that's limiting, it's our thought process. So that's one of the things that I'm really encouraging the team. I think in the automotive industry, we've not really embraced data analytics and AI specifically as much as we should. I think that really the possibilities are endless in terms of what we can use it for. So it's easy to think about data in terms of, okay, how can we use it to improve our manufacturing, right? But for me, I think bigger. I think, okay, how can we take data that we get from our fleet? How can we combine it with perhaps data we get in our bench testing or our hill testing? How can we put that and combine it with simulation or digital twin technology and use that to not only innovate the newest generation, but make it better quality, make it faster than ever before, so we can get it in the hands of our customers and speed up our entire development cycle. Maybe we can even say, hey, we want to do something game-changing, and instead of just innovating and creating a next generation of what we've already done, maybe we can say, well, we have all this data. What if we combined it in a unique way? Let's simulate that. Let's have a digital twin of that and see what that does. Then there's also just the regulatory aspects, right? We're into the clean energy aspects of vehicles, and there's new regulations coming out all the time. And we have to be forward thinking in that. Like, okay, if we're going to release a vehicle 5 years from now, what regulations are we going to have to meet? So we need to be able to look at our technology roadmap and say, can we meet those regulations? And if not, what do we do about it? Data comes in and plays a huge part in that as well. So it's really, I feel like it's limitless. It's just a matter of what can we think of, not being afraid to try something, and then making sure that we have the tools and the resources and the talent that we need to be able to give it a shot and really exploit the results.
Okay, very interesting. You mentioned one of my favorite terms there, digital twin.
Okay, yeah.
Can you define that for our audience from your perspective and tell us if you think this is a new technology, digital twin, or is this something that you've encountered many times throughout your career in automotive?
I don't view it as a new technology. The term has been tossed about, I would say, for a while. And I would say that I know I'm not a technical expert on digital twins, so perhaps my definition is oversimplified. But in my mind, a digital twin is a perfect digital representation of a physical object at its simplest form. And it can be a process. It can be like a manufacturing process. It can be a component in a vehicle. It can be the entire vehicle. It can be a group of components. So it can be a system of systems. I view a digital twin can be anything we want it to be. It's just a digital version of a physical product, or a physical thing, perhaps is better. And when we use that, we can identify, is something going to work or is it not going to work? Or is this modification as effective as we think it's going to be, rather than having to implement that modification on the physical item, whether that physical thing is a process. So if we want to make a change to our manufacturing process, making it to the actual process can be time consuming, it can be costly. Maybe you're going to end up with scrap products, all of those things. But if we have a digital twin and we make that change there, we can do it faster. We don't have the scrap. We don't have, to use resources, people resources. So it makes sense that you can do that. The same is true for a physical product. If we want to make a change to a piece of hardware and we want to test that, well, if it's a circuit board, you got to do a new layout, you got to do a schematic, you got to do a layout, you got to get new circuit boards in, then you got to manufacture them, you got to do all this to test it, only to find out, okay, that didn't work the way we wanted it to. Well, if we can have a digital twin and we can modify that digital twin with all the requirements that we were going to implement on the physical product, and now we find out it didn't work, well, that was much cheaper and much faster, right? So it makes sense that we would do something like that. So it's not necessarily new, the concept. I think the implementation of that concept has grown leaps and bounds. As technology has matured, as the ability of compute and the capability of compute has matured and all of those things, I think the capability of digital twin has improved. But the concept itself has been around for a while. And I think more and more companies are talking about the benefits that it can bring to the organizations.
Yeah, and I love that, talking about benefits, and one of the use cases you mentioned was reducing scrap. I think forever people have been saying, what's the business value of this technology? And it often says it's either a reduction in costs, it's an increase in revenue maybe, it's a reduction in time spent possibly. But I think increasingly you see people talking about a reduction in carbon emissions, mm-hmm. and that it's better for the environment. And again, reduction of scrap. You mentioned clean energy. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of the environment, of sustainability, the pressures that's putting on an automaker today?
Mm-hmm. Especially a new energy automaker. And not because it's not important to us, because the fact that we're doing it shows how important it is to us. We're committed to making the environment better, which is why we're putting these vehicles out there. But there's significant regulations behind it, and making sure that we're meeting the emission standards. And there's new regulations that are being published with respect to batteries and EV batteries and hybrid batteries, and the degradation over time, and that the batteries are going to last and have a state of health at a certain percent, even after a certain number of miles on the battery, and those requirements are challenging. They're difficult to meet. On top of that, there's more and more concern about battery recycling, and that's new. Battery recycling is nascent technology for EV batteries. Lead acid, so the traditional 12 volt, that's been around for a long time. It's very well established. It's table stakes. Everybody does it, and that's great. But it's new, and it's still being developed and still being determined how best to do this for EV batteries, regardless of the chemistry composition for those EV batteries. And so, but as these regulations are coming on, and the circular economy, which is part of this, is coming into play, we're obviously making sure that we are aligned with those, that whatever regulations are out there, that we're meeting those are very important to us. And so, but that doesn't mean it's not hard to do, right? So we've got the challenge of just the technology. We've got the importance of maintaining the aesthetics, because that's something that's really important to us. We want you to connect emotionally to your vehicle. But then we have to make sure that we are supporting and meeting, and in some cases exceeding, the regulations, whether that's the emissions targets, the battery degradation targets, the circular economy targets, whatever those are. Not just what they are today, but what they're going to be in the future. Not even mentioning the Euro NCAP targets for safety, all the rest, right? Yeah. So there's quite a few. So it's a challenging thing to be able to put out a car, but challenges are what we live for. We wouldn't be doing this if this was easy.
Sure.
And that's what makes it fun.
Sure. Regulation. How is that for you? Within your role, is it something that you depend on? Because that just depends on what you're doing from an engineering standpoint. Regulation is just something, again, you need to take into account. Is it something that annoys you? How do you feel about regulation?
for me, it's just another requirement.
Yeah.
It is necessary. It's a constraint. That's how I look at it. And that's a very engineering, I guess, way to look at it. So my engineer my inner engineer is coming out. But when I look at when we're designing a car, and we're in the midst of developing a car as we speak, we have a list of constraints, and regulations are a constraint. And we say, okay, I have meetings with the team, and I'm like, okay, what's Euro NCAP? And Euro NCAP isn't a requirement, but it's something we aspire to, right? And so it's like, okay, we would like that 5-star rating. What does it take to get the 5-star rating? Okay, what is the EU regulations? Those are required. What's NHTSA's regulations? Those are required. What is the CARB regulations for the state of California? Those are required. So those are all constraints. So it's just a matter of understanding your constraints, viewing them as they're not nice to haves. They are absolutely 100% required. It's not optional. And then we build that in. And then we go through, and it's like, okay, this is what we do.
Sure.
It's no different, to me, it's no different than functional safety. So functional safety, you have your rating, your ASIL rating, and that ASIL rating comes with requirements. And so just like anything else, it's this is the expectation for the business that we are in. We chose to be in the business of putting a car on the road.
Is there similarities, at least between the regulation here in the US, in Europe, in Asia, or are there discrepancies between what you see depending on where you're selling your cars?
There's variation. I would say there's similarities, but some variation. There are certain areas that are, I would say, more aggressive in their targets, depending on what they are. Whether you're looking at ADAS or emissions or but from our perspective, it's like, okay, if we're going to sell to the world, let's say, then we just look at what are the most stringent, because then the rest of them don't matter, right? Because that is our target then. And then we test to those, and then we design, we engineer, and we test.
Okay.
And then in most cases there's also a certification, right? And so then you are certified by, depending on the regulation, it's either a third party or we can do an internal certification and submit results. But we design, we have the requirements or the constraint, then we design, we engineer, we test internally, and then we go out and get whatever certification is required, and that allows us to then sell the vehicle in that market.
Sure. I think when you think about things day to day, it's very hard to see the big changes, but when you look across a big data set, the changes are so apparent. And I think sometimes in the automotive space, when you work day to day, sometimes it can seem slow moving, but then if you think about the year 2010, let's say, the differences between then and now are just so incredible.
Yeah.
So if we take that, where else can the automotive world go? If you're designing a car and building a car in 2030, what do you think is going to be different? A car from scratch, 2030, what's different?
From scratch. Well, see, a car from scratch is very different than a car from a platform, right?
Sure.
Because if you have a clean sheet of paper, you can do a lot of things. So 2030 is only 6 years away, right? So 2030 clean sheet of paper, it will have a zonal architecture that's fully supportive of an ASIL D functional safety system, fully abstracted software, so fully software-defined vehicle. I think it could either be a level 3 or a level 4 system. In my opinion, it's going to depend on market and where that vehicle is sold. So if it's I think that there is an application for level 3 systems if it's like a commuter vehicle and it's being sold somewhere where there's potentially a potential for some significant highway driving, right? Right now there's we just saw the launch at kind of the first true level 3 in the market not too long ago. And there's a, I think that was the first, there's always been kind of like a veil between, of a concern about the handoff, right, with the driver. And so it seems like maybe we've finally pierced that veil, at least initially. So I think we're going to kind of get over that. So I think we're going to see more level 3s. Will we bridge to that level 4? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I think we're definitely going to see some level 3s. I think we're going to see a lot more integration in the cockpit of sensor technology that we're used to seeing on the external. So we already have cameras on the inside, but I'm thinking radars. We'll start seeing radars come in, enabling new types of features. I think we're going to see technology that will make sure that no child is ever left behind in a vehicle ever again, because those things are 100% preventable. The technology exists. There's no reason we shouldn't have it in the cars. And so I think you're going to start seeing all of that kind of emerge. So it's not necessarily that you're going to see this, oh my God, the car's going to fly, right? or something like that. But I think you're going to see us using technology to eliminate some of the things that are either annoying or life-changing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really exciting place to be.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, that a lot of the technology exists today. So by 2030, they'll be just considered the standard.
It's just a standard. And it's like taking the technology that we have, or maybe elements of the technology we have, and combining it in interesting and unique ways that maybe we haven't thought of before. Yeah. And suddenly it unlocks some really cool new things. Yeah. And that's going to be fun.
Yeah, people speak a lot about table stakes, and within the AI game, it's now table stakes that you need to have integration with ChatGPT, that you need to have integration with Gen AI, table stakes. So I think by 2030, a lot of the technology that you see being announced this year, next year, the year before, the years before, like you said, around sensors to detect if there's a child in the car, that'll just be standard.
It's just going to be standard. It's like a backup camera. Yeah. You know how hard it is to find a car without a backup camera?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself. I mean, what drives you as a leader? Is it a love of cars, Jada, or what keeps you driven?
The funny thing is I'm not a car person, and that people find that ironic because I've been in the car industry for so long. I do like to drive, but I'm not a car person. I'm a technology person, and cars have some really cool tech in them, and so I get geeked out about the tech. But what really drives me is making a difference. And that's one of the reasons I came to Karma was I really feel like I can make a difference there, and I feel like I'm already making a difference, and I see the future, and I feel like we as a team can make a difference. And so for me, that's really what it's about is how can I make a difference on the company, on the people I work with, like every day. Like every day I wake up and I'm like, I want to be better today than I was yesterday. I want to have a positive impact on one person. And if I do that, then I did good today. I didn't get my to-do list done. I never do, ever. But you know what? If I made one person's day just a little bit better, then it was good because I made a difference, and that's my motivation. And
I know you're also a keen mentor, often to young females in the workplace. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about, again, why that's important to you, and how do you see female empowerment working at the moment? What more needs to be done?
Yeah, it is important to me because I grew up in the industry without seeing a lot of female leaders, and so I want to be that. I want to be there for other people like me, so that they know that, hey, if I did it, you can do it too. And like, if I broke barriers, I want them to stay broken so that other people don't have to break them again, right? And there's this song I like, but it's Tim McGraw, Humble and Kind.
Are you going to sing it?
Absolutely not. But there's a line in it that says, basically, like, when you get to where you're going, turn around and help the next one in line. And that's important. It's not good enough for me to, whatever my goals are, to say, okay, I got there. If I don't turn around and help the next person in line, then then did I really get there? So helping everyone is important, but especially looking out for any individual who has to break barriers and making sure that they know they're not alone. That's important. In terms of, are we doing enough? The answer is no, we're never. And it doesn't matter how much we do, we're never doing enough. Simply because, anytime I go into a conference room, if I look around and I'm the only one, then we haven't done enough. And it's still that way. And so maybe I'll think we've done enough when I walk into a conference room and I'm not the only one. I'm not even asking for even, right? But maybe just a bit more equity. That would be nice. My daughter, she doesn't want to be in engineering. She wants to be actually in medicine. But she's taken all these STEM classes. And she actually came to me and said that she's recognized a gender disparity in her high school STEM classes. And she was surprised, and I was surprised at this, with that many years, different 25 years, whatever it is, difference, that there's still such disparity. But that doesn't mean that we haven't made progress. We have, and it's good progress. It just means we can't stop trying. We have to keep helping the next one in line. And if every one of us does that, then we're going to get someplace that we're really proud of.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yeah.
2-part question.
Okay.
One piece of advice, you'll have lots of advice, but one really important piece of advice to a young female in the workplace, let's say an engineer that's just starting their career, how would you advise them? And the second part is to a leader trying to build a diverse workforce. What would you advise them?
Okay, to the young person, I would give them some advice that I got later in my career than I wish I got it. And it has to do with work-life balance, because it's something I personally struggle with, and a lot of people do. And the advice I got was to balance the moments. So don't try to balance the big thing, because for me it always seemed insurmountable. But when they said, I heard it was like a panel discussion, and I was at a conference, and this woman said it, and it was like a light bulb. So for me, I balance the moment. So every moment, every day, every hour sometimes, I balance. Where's the right place for me to be? Is it at my child's event? Is it like on a date with my husband? Is it attending a meeting at work? And I balance those moments, and it works. It works for me, and it takes the stress out of my work-life balance situation. And my family knows it, and I know it, and work knows it, and we all know it, and it works really well. So I would give that advice to the younger person. To the leader, the advice I would give was also some advice I got. And it has been impactful to me, because throughout my career, I've been moved from one job to another to solve problems, because I'm a pretty good problem solver. And sometimes I was put in a situation where I did not have the technical background to really contribute technically. And I had kind of depended on that. And so I felt out of place, and I felt like, can I really make a difference here? And the advice that I got was 2 words. It was leadership matters. And the message was essentially, sometimes it's not about having the technical background. You're surrounded by people probably a lot smarter than you technically, even if you knew the subject. But what you have that they don't is leadership. And if you have a bunch of technical people and no leaders, you're going to fail. So what they need is really strong leadership. And that's why I was there. And leadership mattered. And that's why I mattered, and that's why I was important to the overall team. And so I've never forgotten that. And that's the advice I would give, is leadership matters. Don't ever think that you're not making a difference. Focus on your leadership skills, because they matter more than you realize.
Jada Smith, thank you so much for joining. Brilliant.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it.